Hey, everybody. Thank you so much for catching All Access Live today. This is a really special day. We're going to honor somebody who truly is a rock star, not only in the region, but in the rock and roll business, in the education business. Before I do this, though, I want to thank a couple of people that are in the area. Five Star Guitars is an incredible guitar shop. They've got repairs, they've got lessons, they do used and new equipment. If you are at all interested in playing guitar, go to the link below, fivestarguitars.com/all access live, and use the promo code of all access 15. You're going to save 15% off everything you see there. And if you're ordering online and you're outside the Oregon area, then you pay no sales tax. So you'll save a ton of dough. You're going to support an incredible company that has been very supportive of me. The owner of that shop, Joff Metz, was actually the creator, the writer of that very theme song for All Access Live. So thank you, Joff. I also want to thank Rhythm Traders. They've been around for 30 years. Incredible drum shop. They've got used and brand new gear. They also do lessons. And if you go to rhythmtraders.com and let them know that I sent you, you'll also save 10%. And again, since there's no sales tax in Oregon, you're going to save that money as well. Finally, the greatest record shop on the planet, Music Millennium. Near and dear friend of my guest and I are both honored that Music Millennium has been around since the 70s. They've got an amazing selection of vinyl. They've been really the most upstanding music store that I can think of in decades, and very supportive of music education that Terry Courier is. So go to musicmillennium.com and you'll probably find a whole bunch of albums that my next guest has performed on. So before we get started, do me a favor. If you're watching this on anything else other than YouTube, go to this link below. Go to youtube.com/all access live with Kevin Rankin. It's a mouthful, but if you go to that link and you hit the subscribe button, you'll be notified. As long as you hit the bell too, you'll be notified about all of my upcoming guests. You can go back and look through over 250 episodes that I've done on this show since May of 2020. If you like this video, you can hit the like button as well. I'm sure you will. If you get here late or you want to go and look through the archives, you can also go to accesskevin.com. They're all there. So again, I do want to thank Five Star Guitars, Rhythm Traders, and Music Millennium. So now, my next guest, this guy is celebrating a magic milestone. We're going to talk about his milestone today. You've heard him on records from amazing seminal 80s bands like New Shoes, one of my favorite bands from the Pacific Northwest that I got to see in Montana as a teenager. Crazy Eights, incredible band. This is a two-time inductee for the Oregon Music Hall of Fame, all the way from his newly found retirement spot, Dan Schauffler. How you doing, Danny?
I just trying to figure out where in Montana we were at. Was it the University, Bozeman?
It was in Bozeman, but you were playing the Cat's Paw. Yes, sir, man. I was 17, and I snuck into this bar, and they let me sit back behind the soundboard so that I could watch you guys perform. And yeah, man, it was incredible.
Wow.
Yeah. I was such a fan of the Portland area music, and I didn't even know that you guys were Portlanders. I also loved the Dan Reed Network at that point too, and so actually, maybe a little bit later, maybe 18, but I do know that I was way underage, and it was such a cool band because I'd been playing in jazz band and some of the other ensembles in school. But you guys mixed it all up. You were a killer rock band with all the funk stuff, and you had some R&B vibe in it, and the craziness of this punk rock energy on stage too. So that was an eye opener for sure. Thank you for bringing that to Montana, man.
Well, gosh, I just loved that part of our tours when we'd go through that area, and I think we played at the college maybe, but no, I'm trying to remember that club.
Yeah, the sub ballroom was the student union ballroom, the sub ballroom for Montana State had you in there in 1988. I think that sounds about right, or maybe 89. Yeah, somewhere right in there. A lot of years under the bridge, but
you could just practically walk upstream and go trout fishing.
True.
And I loved cruising around. One time with the Shoes, we toured up in there and we went up to Flathead Lake. And
oh yeah.
Oh well, so you're from there?
I am. Yep. I lived in a cabin in the woods, far away from everybody. Went to high school and college there in Bozeman. Yep. Yeah. That was and I couldn't wait to get away from there. As soon as I graduated from college, I was, actually all of my friends, the day we graduated high school, my close music friends, they all went to LA. They were like, we're out of here, man. We're going to go make it big. And uh,
And they did.
nobody's playing anymore. I'm the only guy that still plays music. Yeah. And I stuck around. I figured, okay, I'll go to college. My mom and dad wanted me to get the degree as the backup. And I really wanted Seattle. I was feeling like Seattle was my spot, but I helped a friend move to Portland and it stuck, man. I loved the energy here. Seattle got big fast and kind of the way Portland is now. But in 93, I visited here. I fell in love with it, moved in 94. And yeah, it was a magical spot.
Well, that particular time between your high school and 93, Portland was really a spawning ground for original music.
Right.
And you knew about Dan Reed, of course.
Yep.
What was it like I shouldn't interview you, but I just remember coming back from college a little earlier than that. I was in New York studying, and I come back to Portland. It's a whole just burgeoning scene of bands.
Yeah.
You had
Yeah.
the Wipers at Satyricon. You had the jazz scene was over the top. I think my most influential friend I made was Carlton Jackson.
Oh, man,
and
rest in peace.
bringing together the jazz and the rock artists and creating that crazy band we had, LeBone. I'm going to start posting some of that stuff.
You have to.
Yeah.
Oh, you know what? Let me ask you something. I don't want to take that story away because, man, Carlton Jackson actually was scheduled to do my show when he passed away. I was really, really. It was, man, one of my heroes, local hero, and somebody who, for people that may not know how much he had involvement with the music union here, he really was the figurehead behind all that, and really just fighting for musicians' rights. That guy was, he was a champion, But you started talking about Dan Reed Network. So tell me, what's the deal with this thing right here?
Oh, yeah. There was a point where Kenny G wasn't going to join Dan Reed Network, and they wanted a sax player. And I was like, well, I think I was playing, I'm sort of in between the Shooz and the Eights at that point. Okay. What's the date there? 82.
86.
Oh, yeah, that's it. Okay, I was in the Eights by then. And Nate Phillips is on there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And they had some hot tunes on that record.
For sure.
Burning Down the House. I can't remember all of them. And I went into Desert Trek and cut a track on trade with Brian James, and he was going to come help us out on I think it was our third album. And Desert Trek, we were always in there spending money and spending time recording. It was great.
Man, and so was it seriously that Kenny G was a consideration for Dan Reed Network?
That's what Dan told me.
Wow. Okay.
I went to this party, Billy Flaxel, this drummer from Billy Rancher was throwing a party, and I met Dan Reed. Of course, I'd heard him a few times, and he says, "Hey, come over and we'll do some recording." And then I went. I don't know. I think it was sort of one of those things. Hey, would you like to, jam with us? And later it was like, we need a sax player, and I made a choice not to go. And then they go off opening for the Rolling Stones. Of course.
Right. Yeah.
One of those great choices in my life.
Do you have some regrets like that? Some other ones? What I could have, should have?
I really didn't find the depth at that time. Dan Reed's amazing songwriter, but at the time I was just exploring writing with Tim Tubb and Todd Duncan and the Crazy Eights and Carl, and there were just so many opportunities there that I didn't have with New Shoes for writing, and that was kind of like where my focus was. I want to see if I can collaborate. And we had a tune that Carlton and Jackson and I and the LeBone guys had put together, and the Eights said, let's play that. We'll record that. And I said, okay, that's it. I'm in. Where do I sign up? Well, we don't have a contract, but it was great. We did 6-7 albums.
Really? Oh my gosh. Oh yeah, we'll get into that backdrop. I see some of those albums there. This is such a well-planned backdrop. I am so excited about this. We're going to go through the museum of Danny Schauffler. First of all, dude, before all this, can I just tell you, congratulations. Today was the day, right?
My last jazz band class and concert band, I've been teaching 23 years at the Valley Catholic High School. It's been awesome with a little 40-piece concert band and a fluctuating jazz band of kids willing to experiment and learn to improvise. And then we had a middle school feeder program. Uh, there's 60 kids in that band
Wow.
and an eighth grade jazz band now. And this thing grew over the years. The school was very much kind of a niche school for arts and music. We're 3A little school. And I guess we're an alternative school in the district for, say, Jesuit or Beaverton High School. And then there's the Beaverton Arts for the really talented, serious students as well. But I like the Beaverton art scene right now. It's and the youth musicians surprise me. They find ways, places to play, things that they can do to learn and create music.
I know that we're going to get into this a little bit, but one thing that I have really admired about you over the years, for people that don't know, Danny, he's crossed so many sort of barriers here in town. I mean, Danny, he's very humble. One of the things I love about you, man, is that you've always made it about everybody else. You really sort of honor and revere, especially youth, and you've provided opportunities for a lot of your students and kids in the area to play with nationally and internationally recognized artists. The Lake Oswego Festival of the Arts is something you've been doing for several years, and even before that, just in teaching, your involvement even with Oregon Music Hall of Fame. These organizations that try to keep education and music still in the schools when they're cutting funding for that kind of thing. You're a champion for these kids, man, and obviously music education was a big thing for you when you were younger. So can you tell me like where this formation came from for you?
I was at home teaching in my garage. First daughter was born in 1990, and I realized I'm still going on tour with the Eights. But I'd come home from a tour, say from back east or Montana, and I noticed my 1-year-old now didn't recognize me, and so I was compelled to just reach out to the community, and I started teaching in my garage, and we'd go caroling with all these horns in the neighborhood, and pretty soon those students. I was drawn into a couple different schools, and I went back to study music education for a few years while I was teaching at Catlin Gable and several other schools. I'd sort of do a circuit of private schools and build little programs. And finally, when I left the Eights in 93 or 4, I got pretty serious about teaching because Measure 5 wiped out all the string programs in Washington County. I was working at Sands Music, teaching lessons, and I just watched all these string programs go away. They were orchestras. We still have them out in Clackamas,
Sure.
in our district, but so I noticed Valley had an orchestra, a band, and a choir. And the sisters were getting kind of, they've been doing this for 100 years. And they dropped in one day at Sands Music and says, "You could be a band teacher, right?" I said, "Well, okay, I'm just trying." I just had these little student groups. And they said, "Well, come on over." And I tried out. And we went to Europe, the sisters and the kids and I, with small groups. We toured Germany. We would take every few years, we'd take the kids to a college, maybe Stanford or up at Washington U, and get clinics. We'd always try to reach out into the community. And finally, you may have seen this, the pep band and the jazz band came and sat in with the Crazy Eights at some reunions at the Crystal Ballroom.
Oh man.
We played at the festivals, and we'd have all these kids on stage. And I thought, okay, this has come full circle. And that kind of dovetailed in with the Lake Oswego Festival, with which my wife and I have been curating for, I don't know, 13, 14 years. 16 years.
Yeah. Hi, Annie. Beautiful. There's the MVP. She's behind the scenes, behind the curtain, right?
She's my manager, and now she's retooling to do promotions and gigs. We're getting some gigs too, and she sings.
Oh, yeah, man.
We just did an art gallery gig together.
Really? Just
Yeah.
the two of you?
Yeah, we've had a little Irish gig on the side for years, and she's a dual citizen of Ireland, and
Oh,
we
wow.
love to play some reels. And that I'll just rabbit trail. I've fallen in love with Irish music. Whenever the We Banjo Three come to town from Dingle,
Okay.
I go sit in with them. We have a little horn section, and that's my dream, is to someday be in an Irish band that likes horns.
You know, this is the thing, man. You're at this point now where you get to pick any of those things, right? I mean, you and I were talking the other day about how one of your, sort of dreams that you're helping realize is that, I want to be in a garage band now. You're just gonna just go full circle, having played arenas, and now you want to play in a garage band.
Well, yeah, and what does that mean in today's vernacular? Everyone has a band working out in the garage, right? You do.
Right? Yeah, I still do. It's over there.
But I guess the definition of that, what would it mean to you if you were like me? I was born in the late 50s. So
I think it's all the same, right? You start here in the garage and you move into small, like little what the British equivalent, the pubs. You play in the small bars, and just you're there for the fun, the enjoyment, the spirit of it, not necessarily the presentation of a performance, but more of the interaction in the energy in the small environment.
And there's usually a rawness,
yeah,
to whichever invasion or repelling of an invasion. And I really got inspired a few years ago. Just, we can get off garage bands in a bit, but I'm obsessed with it. After I saw the Sonics make it back onto the scene, and they came and played at the Star Theater here, or some Dante's, I don't know where it was, and then I sort of followed them, and they went out to Iceland, and I don't know, all these places, and they were playing with the Hives.
Oh, wow.
Kind of a punk Netherlands band. And I realized, okay, there's been a resurgence of the Northwest sound, but also this has been going on for a while over in Detroit and New York. And this was the seminal energy, I think, that spawned punk music.
Yeah.
Which is my other pet peeve. And then, you find out there's all these garage rockers who've been around, like Mike Mitchell and the Kingsmen in the Northwest. And the Oregon Music Hall of Fame, circling back to that organization, is not only involved in education and developing scholarships, as you did on the board there for students. We can talk about that. But they bring back into a venue these guys, and they're a chance to get, memorialize. This is Mike Mitchell here.
Oh, look at that. Yeah, buddy.
He was the garage godfather for us. So we're revering in this season. And
that is that event. I was really sad to be gone when that event was happening, but in honor of Mike when he passed away, I was just about a year ago, right? Almost a year ago.
Yeah. And we, in October, we did the thing, and each one of his children got up there. Some of them are in college, others are a little younger, older, and each one got up and sat in with the Kingsmen and just rocked it.
So cool, man. People outside the Portland area probably have no idea how deeply rooted the foundation of rock and roll that there is here. I mean, and artists that have actually been really successful. I mean, in the area and just in the rock scene. You talked about being with New Shoes, right? Like one of the most iconic bands with those iconic songs from the 80s. But you've got guys like Tommy Two-Tone here, and Martha Davis from the Motels lives here, and Bill Wadhams from Animotion, and Mike Skill from the Romantics, right? This town is just loaded full of like these little pockets of musicians that are they've figured out how magical Portland is. And you've been a huge part of a lot of those ensembles too. I know that every one of those organ music hall of fames, you're a big part of the Louie the finale at the end of the night, right? I think that's where you and I have played a good handful of gigs, even just up there singing. I got some great memories of being up there. This is the Mike Mitchell Memorial, but very
Yeah.
similar kind of thing, man. Everybody getting up and honoring. I see you there, like, blowing sax. You got Terry Curry behind you. There's some Jennifer Batten
Oh,
behind him.
she just shredded. And then you've got Mike Mitchell's son playing bass there with the mask on.
Oh wow!
In back of Fang,
Yeah.
Volk and Terry Curry are rocking it. And let's see. Oh, one of my favorite singers and the frontman for the Kingsmen. Oh gosh, but I'm looking at Alex Hart on the drums.
Oh, right on. Very cool. Right in front of Mike Skill, or right behind Mike Skill.
Mike, that's the first time I actually got to meet him. He was on the school board in Carver.
Right.
And met my stepmom, who's an educator. And she said, this was 15 years, 20 years ago. She goes, Mike Skill from the Romantics, you guys opened for them, right? The Eights got to open for the Romantics at Starry Night several times.
Really? Okay.
And so I was like, he's living here. Oh, I'll have to. It took me almost a decade to get near the guy because he's a family man.
Yes, sir.
And they were raising a little. They were working with that little school in Carver, and it was a neat choice he made, to move there. But then to finally meet him and play with him, I thought, oh, this is the garage band vision. This is the epiphany.
That's true.
And you just showed the picture of it. That was like, okay, that was my dream. That's all I could live with that, but it'd be nice to develop it.
Yeah, but you get, you can do little chapters, right? These are all the chapters of the Danny Schauffler book now, because having been an educator for this long, but I don't want to say dabbling, but you've had your hand in so many different sort of ensembles. I think you worked with Tim Ellis quite often too, didn't you? Did you do some? Yeah. Like another amazing, like MVP in the area.
He came to town, and Craig Carruthers and Tim did some really amazing. Were you here when Go 90 was a thing?
Not yet. No.
Okay. They had an amazing band, and of course Craig moved to Nashville, and I don't know who else was in that band, but I remember Tim Ellis, and then over the years he became a great producer at Whitehorse, and then they started Kung Fu Bakery.
Right.
Oh man, the most amazing studio. And I worked with Tim for about a decade. Every Sunday we'd meet out at South Lake with the Brown Sisters and do gospel music. So that was a hoot.
Rest in peace, Tim Ellis, man. To me, he was probably the most influential person in my life as a professional musician.
Really?
And just playing with him and Jim Walker, where I had to hold on for dear life. The amount of lessons that I got from them and
Tim and Jim,
Yeah. That was the most dangerous band I've ever played in, and I've played in some gritty, tough, jacket wearing,
That's
project.
right. You were Tim and Jim.
Yeah, I was, as an honorary, trio, but a lot of gigs, and but I see that there are some Crazy Eights fans weighing in the chat here. If there's any doubt who I am, just call me Johnny Q Public. Great 80s tune. Yeah. So Mark Contratti says that he listened to the Eights back on WLAR. So. WLAR was like the formative Long Island rock radio station that
we were Streamer of the Week there. Yeah.
All right, on. Yeah. Well, I'm glad to hear. Oh, and now on XM Sirius Radio, WLAR actually did a documentary a few years ago about these artists that they brought back, and we went and did Tribeca Film Festival, where they had. Dave Wakeling and the Alarm came and performed with us, at that event. It was so crazy,
At
awesome.
the beat. Oh,
Yeah, and the beat. Yeah, we do a lot of shows with them with the Flock of Seagulls, man. It's cool, but I, um, it's amazing to me how you can cross over into so many different genres. I think when I looked into some of your earlier stuff, this is crazy. When I look back in the early days of Danny Schauffler, I found things like this. You got to tell me about this band.
oh, okay. There's a seminal band here. It was called Felicidades, and we had a steel drum player who is a genius, Christopher Kern. He's holding a little soprano, whatever a curved soprano, and he is amazing. So we built this band. I stepped off a bus when I was at Catlin High School. I went down and I had my flute with me. I was going to go busk a little, and here were these four guys. Dave Graff here on the far left, playing C melody sax and bass.
Okay.
And then Scotty Wardinsky later became a great percussionist for New Shoes. And you got Larry Higgin over here was our lead singer, and we would tour down to the Wow Hall in a converted step van that Dave had souped up that we could only drive at night because it would overheat. And we camp out at Sandy Am, pull over there, and then we'd make it down to Eugene and play down there, opening for I think Notary Sojak or some of these old hippie bands. And we would play the Commons at the U of O, and there would be bomb threats, but it would usually be successful.
Yeah.
This band, eventually John Smith rolled in from San Pedro, California, and he was homeless basically, but just a wonderful guy. And we just took him into our studio, which was off of Burnside, where the Erickson Hotel is now. And we had this cheap 3 stories with a bunch of dancers and artists. It was a collective. We're all living on food stamps. And John lived there and worked at a Gardy's Pizza. And he kind of wove his way into Felicidades, and then took Larry and Dave and Scotty and me. And we went, and Valerie was singing and playing congas. And that became New Shoes a couple years after this picture.
Wow, no kidding. So this was the early formative days of New Shoes, huh?
And there's also some guys, Donnie Mumford in the back row right was a drummer for Kukrudu in its first inception.
Wow.
And Dave Leslie was a great pianist. And then my mentor up front, Alan Nolgren, holding an alto flute, he was in Upeppo.
Oh, yeah.
Upeppo was the most influential band on the Crazy Eights, I would say.
Okay.
And Shoes. We listened to those guys. I hope you can all find them on YouTube because they're hard to find. But
yeah, well, they were also inductees for the Oregon Music Hall of Fame. I've got, in this array of Gary Houston posters back here, I've got Danny Schauffler, Crazy Eights, New Shoes as an assortment in this collection. But so New Shoes, I mean, a lot of people, of course, you cannot go into a Target and not hear "I Can't Wait," right? But for those early days, I mean, John Smith, I felt like was one of these guys that he's a genius guitarist and a hook master. The guy is, he's kind of a prog dude, in terms of like understanding music theory, and his musicianship is incredible. But the unit that he and Valerie Day have is so adorable. I can't even stand it, man. They're so damn cute together, and so it was a perfect thing for this Portland couple. I mean, they've been together for so long, but we've done a lot of shows all together. And one thing that I loved about them is they lead with love. They really do, man. I mean, Valerie Day, she's got an incredibly successful podcast. I love her podcast where she showcases influential singers, spirited singers, and she really focuses on what made those people sort of unique and different. And it's always one of those, they're putting attention on decency, and I just I know that we lost them to a little farther north. I mean, they moved this last year, and I feel like Portland lost a little bit of culture, when Valerie and John moved away. But you've had decades with them, huh?
Well, Valerie and I knew each other since '64. We went to school together, And we had the same music teacher. My dad taught at Catlin. He was the choir director.
Really?
And we had a theater out there where we could just experiment. Amazing stuff at the a beautiful place to kind of where Gus Van Zant also was going to school. They had a great art department. And your dad, you told me, was a teacher of art.
Mm-hmm.
Well, John was an art student. And so
Dad's a sax player too, by the way.
Yeah, not bad on trumpet. He even filled out the early. He just could do anything, and he actually took some lessons. We tried to learn some Charlie Parker solos together. He had a great horn. I don't know what he did with that Martin. John, I come back from a few years in New York, and I got to play with the Shooz. We went on a little tour to Ashland and did some things, and somehow he had, since I had gone to school, he and Valerie had really grown together. I think she was 17 when he first got here, and she and I were still friends in high school. Went to the junior prom together as friends because all our significant others were gone, and I was just pleased the way they hit it off.
Yeah.
So I got to be at their wedding and at the old church and play at the wedding. There's some pictures of that are just to die for. With his best men were all the new Shooz guys.
Oh, right on. That's, so I see, Larry Turing's here. He said that my uncle Larry's band co-founded New Shooz.
Larry's that's his nephew, right?
Yep.
I see him on Facebook. That guy is a aficionado.
That's true.
When it comes to vinyl.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. Yeah. Look at that. Yeah. He probably has a couple of copies of that.
He's smart though. He didn't open his. He gets a couple copies and keeps them sealed.
Oh man. When I was just mentioning, not only was my dad an art teacher, but dad's a sax player as well. Like my first gigs ever on stage when my dad was playing an alto then, and he brought me into his jazz gig where we played an art gallery. And I was 17. I'd been playing clarinet for a few years. And I realized once I saw the first Motley Crue video that playing drums was a much easier way to find ladies than it was playing clarinet. That was my thought, right, in Montana.
I can see that.
But my dad, and I obsessed about drums. My uncle was this incredible jazz drummer in Chicago. And I saw him play, and I just thought, that's it for me. And my dad said, well, you know what? You got to learn to listen. So he brought me out to an art gallery with this virtuoso bass player who teaches in Eugene often, Rob Kohler, and my dad. And I played my first gig for, I think, like $60 or something like that. And I was so excited not only to get paid, but to play with these world-class musicians playing the straightest, squarest, swing beat ever. But my pop, as a sax player, you'll definitely appreciate. My dad in the mountains took a finger off getting firewood a handful of years ago. Like firewood smashed his finger. So he built a prosthetic, and he was actually using a handmade prosthetic to be able to play. He switched over soprano sax because it was easier. He didn't have to bend as much, right? And
right.
And he just had his soprano sax stolen. So if you know of any place that I can get a decent soprano, I want to get one off to him. So we'll talk. We can talk offline.
Wally's though, I won't put in an no. There's a free plug. Wally's, Oregon City.
Yeah, I know Wally's music. Yeah, I'll definitely go check them out. I didn't even think about it.
The only place you'll find a Selmer Mark VI soprano.
Okay.
Or you get on a list and wait for one. But anyway, they're a boutique.
Let me ask you about.
You go ahead.
You were talking about father. I was going to ask. You tell me about this guy, right? Let me see here.
I've been putting them up on YouTube. We have some. I digitized some of his old folk songs, and we're just getting them up now.
Is this your pop?
Yeah, that's our little cabin on a farm just north of Chicago where I was born.
Wow.
And we lived in Long Grove, grew our own vegetables, and he became a choir director in Palatine. And we would go back and visit the farm. That's where my grandparents, they put us up in this little shack for a few years. And then my mom, harangued my dad to get out of town, get away from the Klan, and we moved out to Portland, where he got a gig doing choir at Catlin Gable,
Wow.
developing a summer stock theater and music program. We'd tour up to the San Juan Islands and ferry around and play the kids camp, summer camps and schools. And he was just sort of a cool guy that would get uh, everyone singing, and he knew 1,000 folk songs. And we just had music. I thought everyone had this,
Sure.
but
Look
of
at
course,
the look in
coloring. Go ahead.
the look on your face. I didn't mean to interrupt you, but the look on both of your faces there, watching him and singing, that to me, that's what I picture your classrooms like. Just Mr. Schauffler, just obsessed with everything you have to say. But was that your sister?
I would shout out. I need to get a picture of my sister and I with Dad. That's my cousin Kathy and Steve. And
Okay.
Steve is a guitar picker and urban renewal guy. Helps a lot of people stay in their homes in Memphis, Tennessee. And
Wow.
he's just put out his own. But he learned. He was sort of ahead of me on guitar. I got on it when I was about 4, but he was already picking at the farm. And Dad helped raise them because they lost their mom, and they're just sitting there. You could see the music just washing over them. I love that picture.
Yeah, it really is touching. You When you talked about how you thought that everybody had that in their lives, I had Stella Parton on my show about a year and a half ago, Dolly Parton's sister, and
Um,
Dolly and Stella and their other sister. They talked about how they were so poor financially, right? They grew up in just the most dire financial circumstances, but their family was always full of joy. They were always in song. Parents were so happy, and they didn't have iPhones and video games and anything to sort of distract them. So their happiness was found playing in the woods, singing, full of song all the time. And the fact that you had that in your family too, your dad's contribution to choir and song. And so when you were talking about those folk songs, were you like singing together? Were you performing? What were your first instruments?
well, we had a lot of showcases at the school, but we'd also play. We'd take the madrigal group, a smaller choir, and go to convalescent homes, retirement homes that we called them back then, and we just Dad would take kids down and play for the Job Corps. And I don't know, he'd get into some situations where you had a bunch of lumberjack kids in tough neighborhoods down in Gold's Beach somewhere, working for Weyerhaeuser. And we'd show up with the kids in suits singing madrigals. How is this going to work? And the funniest thing was he was driving the school bus, and my cousin Debbie says, let me get off this bus. Dad was all tense about going to the Job Corps place. And Debbie runs back with a bag full of something, and they get to the thing, and everyone's uptight. You got these preppies singing for these. It's some contrast, and all of a sudden on a certain madrigal song, everybody pulls out a kazoo. Debbie bought like 17 kazoos and sang this madrigal with kazoos. And from then on, I mean, we went and had ice cream with these kids, got to know them, and I think Dad sort of inculcated the concept that if you have music, no matter where you are, it's a language anyone can relate to and join in on. And he would get audiences singing little Willie Dickens, what's his name? I'm My Own Grandpa. It's funny old folk songs, and Pete Seeger, the Weavers, a lot of civil rights tunes were popular in the early 70s, late 60s.
I mean, at a time right now, because I think the world is kind of really wounded, right? I mean, the pandemic was a really difficult thing for a lot of people, but I've been just thinking about how America is, sort of struggling with some of this stuff, and there's so much divisiveness, and the media is playing people against each other, and people are sort of desperate in a lot of ways to find some sort of light, and music really is that outlet. I know for sure performing when we've gone back out after pandemic started to slide, the energy from people to be able to get out and find that expression is like something I've never seen before. People are desperate for that release. And you talked about how you would go to these areas where maybe there were the backgrounds or the type of folks you're playing for may not have been able to relate to you in any other way, but you could kind of bridge that gap, right? With offering instruments, not just ice cream, but there is a universal language in music that's really, really special. And I would imagine, I'd love to know how you approach that conversation with kids, having taught for so long, and especially now where kids are sort of seeing how challenged the world is and their environment. How is music? How do you
I
feel?
ask them, they'll be sitting there, hey, Shoffs, listen to this tune. And they'll get music that's really interesting off of video, anime. There's a group from Japan called the Seatbelts. And so we learned some of their big band arrangements because the kids were listening to something I would have never listened to. Yoko Kano is a consummate composer, but she writes, just happened to have this one gig that connected with my kids way over here. It was called Cowboy Bebop, animation.
Okay.
So I'm trying to learn where they get this stuff from. But I tell them a story. I said, I don't know about the phones and the digital and the sharing of music. That's sort of a controversy for me. I think it's good you also learn the links in the chain back to Delta blues, folk music as I was raised on, and some classical stuff we use in band literature. But I always tell them about how Valerie and I and John and the Shooz, one time this guy in jail calls us, David Jack Jester, and he says, can you guys come and play at the state pen? And we're like, wait, what? And well, we've had Bonnie Raitt, and I go, you're really booking some names. And I think Willie Nelson played. So we took a chance and we went down to play, and we had to relate to some different folks in there. Yeah. And they could each carry a Mohawk cabinet on each show. These guys were big and stuff. And we're asking dumb questions like, what are you in for? And all kinds of people, everything from sign me up for everything, including murder.
Right.
And yet they had a band in at the pen, and they were very interested in what we were doing. And as we played, some of the guys were dancing in the cafeteria up on the chairs, and I just felt like for a moment it was almost like that Johnny Cash moment, where they're at San Quentin. But it was the Shooz, and of course I tell my kids the story. I found myself playing in many different situations, busking on the street, playing a flute duet with a kid in Germany, trying to learn how to busk properly and not get arrested. But the music will always penetrate the cultural divide. And then all of a sudden, you're talking to Germans about their music, and they want to know about jazz, and they want to. We're staying at a school that's a conservatory for classical artists, but there's always something to share. And so I try to equip them with enough knowledge and given their own framework, like using their phone or using electronica gear. We use stuff at school for recording. We try everything. They don't like the way I rap, and I respect that.
The way you rap?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So we didn't plan this out, but ladies and gentlemen, for the first time on my show, we're going to hear freestyle from Dan Shaw. Do you actually rap with them in the classroom?
Okay, so can you do a beatbox over there? They call me a bookworm, but I don't care. Just watch the squirm. My name is MC Squared. I got a master's, and a PhD, but those word scholars ain't got nothing to me because I'm hip to artificial intelligence, the world of knowledge at my fingertips. But the more I know, the less I know. Dialectics don't work. That's the reason not to go. A thermodynamic second law. Give me a rich theory about love, dog.
Oh my God, yeah, man. How can they not love that? Dr. Dre, did you catch that? ladies and gentlemen, from retirement, from education to the newest hip hop sensation,
See, now,
Beaverton's own.
you put that by your son, and he's going to tear it apart. But he can always use our bass loop that Nate Phillips did. Boom, boom, boom. I want to hear him do something with that.
Yeah, man, absolutely. Thermonucleic. Did you say thermonucleic? Is that was the one of the terms you had?
Thermodynamics.
Thermodynamics. Okay.
I think it's the second law of thermodynamics, and the world's running down. I came up with that little silly ditty one time. We were doing a Crazy Eight thing for a bunch of physicists in where's that place with the arch? St. Louis.
Yeah.
In Old Town, and we're down in there, and they're having a great time, and all these physicists start gathering in the mosh pit. Like, wow, I hear what you're saying.
Oh.
They were all working on their third doctorates. So I would develop this alter ego in Crazy Eights. It was tongue in cheek, really, but I called myself MC Squared.
Nice. Love it.
And it never took off. Rick Warritz, I took it to him. He says, I can't work with this. New Shoes manager, by the way. He says, are you kidding me?
Oh, my
God. And I said, yeah, I'm kidding you.
Always pushing the limits, man. I love it. Before we actually, so Mark was asking here in the chat if you had any future tour plans. We're going to talk about this in a second because he talks about the resurgence of 80s touring. New Shoes has been out. Primarily, John and Valerie have been out doing duet stuff, right? They get a lot of backing tracks, but you got another project that also has some retro vibe to it, right? And maybe this is a good time we could talk about Lake Oswego Festival of the Arts. What do you think?
Yeah, I envisioned like what you're doing with the Seagulls, and I wanted to ask you a favor. If you could ask Mike Score if he could come to the Oregon Music Hall of Fame or at least do a digital appearance.
That would be super fun. Yeah, man. I mean, from Liverpool, it'd probably have to be virtual. Flights from Liverpool to the Aladdin Theater are a little challenging.
But I don't know how I got on that. Yeah, I'm envisioning a 60s revival of garage rock. And it might, I've talked to my friends in the Kingsmen. I've talked to Phil Fang Volk is actually followed up on my dream. So he's coming up here on the 25th of June. I think that's in a couple weeks to play the Lake Oswego Festival of the Arts. And you can all go to a link, which will post.
Here, I'll go ahead and share the screen. Why don't we do this? Let's go right here. If you go to lakewood-center.org, and you can see if you go to the music section for this festival. June 25th and 26th. We've got this day here. Absolutely.
We're going old school. We've got one of the original founding members of the Paul Revere and the Raiders, who played on Ed Sullivan and Dick Clark and Where the Action Is. That's him catching some air there with his family band in Vegas. Wow. And that's his latest record called Rocker, which is okay. And we're bringing him up here because my friend Greg Georgeson from Sequel backed this guy at the Oregon Music Hall of Fame memorial for Mike Mitchell of the Kingsmen, and they all had such a good time. And we couldn't get Mike Skill to come on. There's a few people missing from my dream band, but I did manage to get Mark Bosnian from New Shoes. Wow. Who's a heck of a keyboard player, Burnside Bomber fame back before you got to Portland. He also had his own band, Body and Soul.
That's right.
They were on the Pat Sajak show. So Phil Fang really dug that show. Who was that singer in his?
He had Stephanie Schneiderman in Body and Soul for a while.
Yeah, and Leslie Carter and Annie, who's our favorite gospel singer, blues singer? Played the festival anyway.
Oh, it was not Ray Gordon.
Huh? Linda Hornbuckle.
Oh, of course. Yeah, of course.
She was a New Shoes member. And so Mark did stuff after New Shoes with Linda and those people. He practically took the whole New Shoes horn section and Gary Fontaine, the bass player.
Yeah.
So Mark's in the band. Let me get back. We've got Alex Hart, whose father managed the Raiders, and Alex grew up with them.
Yeah.
Great drummer. and let's see. Oh, Greg Georgeson of Sequel and Marty McCory, who is Fangs, Phil Fang Volk's producer for a great record he put out a few years ago called Fang Reveres the Raiders.
Wow.
And so this is going to be a review of it's a tribute
Sure.
to himself. No, to Mark Lindsay and all the guys. Of course, we can't get Mark to sit in all the time because I think he moved out to Florida from the Gorge. But
Okay.
I'm trying to get him. We've had Harpo sit in, who was the second guitar player, founding member. Okay, now we're going old school. I'm also excited to announce that Norman Sylvester will be also on that bill at 6 o'clock before Phil comes on, Phil Fang Volk and the guys. We'll have Norman's band. I don't know. I think we'll have my favorite sax player there and my other favorite sax player, Pete. Oh, Pete's going to play, and I'll think of his name in a minute. And what a great band that is. Okay, then we're also getting Andy Stokes, who's
right.
up the R&B soul charts right now with a bullet above the 20th position and going north. So Andy has a new hit out written by his friend Kashif, who's your son would know that guy.
Oh yeah, no, for sure. Yeah, so Andy's playing on the Sunday at 4 o'clock. I see in the main stage there.
And everybody should click on his thing because you'll hear his new single. And each one of those you can click on.
Yeah, AndyStokesMusic.com will take you there. You know, I know that Bieber was blowing him up. Bieber gave him shout outs because he was loving Andy's album last year. And
Really?
And once he did that, yeah, this Andy's single took off through the roof. So that was it was really, really cool. He was giving shouting praises to him. So yeah, good for Andy, man. He's definitely another local hero here. So this event, anyway, at least, so for the 25th and 26th, the Lake Oswego Festival of the Arts, this is something that you've helped curate for years now, and the pandemic locked that down, so we didn't have it for the last couple of years. But it's back at George Rogers Park, right, and the Lakewood Center there in Lake Oswego.
Right, and I did remember my favorite sax player, Pete Moss.
Oh, cool.
Norman Sylvester. Sorry about that brain fog there.
That's okay. You just had your last day of teaching, so you have an excuse, buddy. I just wanted people to know. I mean, if you're anywhere in this area, this festival is amazing. I mean, it really is sort of a cultural celebration for expression across the board. You've got not only do you have incredible music, but you've got all sorts of exhibitions and displays of local painters and sculptors and crafts and lots of great food. I mean, it's an awesome way to kick off summer. And I was going to ask you about this too. In this pavilion tent, isn't that right? Isn't this group some of your old students as well, the Flutissimos?
The Flutissimos are a flute choir from Valley Catholic.
Okay.
And they will be featured Saturday, the 25th of June at 11 to 1 p.m. They'll be also playing the artist reception party for the artists. It'll be a good experience for the students. And we're also going to have one of my former students runs a school with her husband now called Paijo.
Okay.
That's way down there. Yeah. Portland Youth Jazz Orchestra is now reemerging, and they took it private. It was part of the Portland Philharmonic thing a few years ago. And they've done a good job of bringing in, the best Ben Medler and Michelle Medler. They're well-known horn players, but they also are teachers. They've taught at Wilson High School and various places, and summer jazz stock. So they'll be showing off their rather advanced Paijo jazz group.
Okay, that right.
Sunday, I believe.
Yeah, so, Sunday at 1 o'clock. It looks like there. You know what I'm going to do? Right down at the bottom here, I've got the link to that. So, folks, if you're watching this, go to lakewood-center.org, and you can see all the details on that festival. June 25th and 26th. This is a perfect way. You're starting the summer off with a bang. All ages, man. Bring your kids down. If you kids have any interest at all in music too, I think it's a great opportunity to see what these youth have in terms of being able to play in front of a really captivated audience. And so I'm excited that you do this. It's a really special thing that you've still been able to provide the community. And how did you get involved with the Lake Oswego Festival of the Arts in the first place?
Well, this is like the 59th or 60th thing. So it's been going on through generations here in the community. And one of my daughters was in high school, Dee Denton, who was kind of the road, I guess she kind of ran things for this festival for most of those years. She just passed away this year, but we're going to honor her this year. There'll be over 1,500 art pieces exhibited.
Wow.
And she asked my daughter, she says, doesn't your dad know a little bit about some of the bands around? And so, yeah, Mia told her, give him a call. And so I talked to this wonderful person, and Annie and I had gone to the festival. In fact, we met at the festival in 2003.
Really?
And we had watched Paul DeLay and Linda Hornbuckle and all these great, it's just always had a great mix of art and music.
Yeah.
And we thought, how would we ever get involved? So it just happened. It fell into our hands, and now we've been at it 16 years. And circling back to my first garage group of students, Ben Medler and Michelle Medler, she was a middle schooler in that garage, and now she's running her own school. And that's kind of our mission statement at the Lake Oswego Festival of the Arts, is to nurture art in the community and to perpetuate it so it can go another 60 years or 100 years.
That's a beautiful, I mean, really, that's legacy in and of itself. I was just finding this picture. This is the last,
Yes.
That was the last Festival of the Arts that I remember seeing. We were down, Oregon Music Hall of Fame was there. We were handing out some information about the education component, and there's the legendary Norman Sylvester, the Boogie Cat, with you, and Janine Rundle from Oregon Music Hall of Fame, and
Board member.
Yes.
Founding board member.
There's the beautiful Annie and Danny with Boogie Cat. Boy, you guys are so fancy. Look at that. First of all, where'd you get that shirt? I got to know about the shirt, man. The jacket.
Bruce McLaughlin is our light man for the Crazy Eights. He's always out there hunting for really cool rock attire.
Yeah,
between Annie and him and Bruce, she bought the suit, but then Norman's got a new suit every day.
It's the truth. You can never upstage Norman Sylvester, man. Just look at that guy. And
I got my wedding tux from his wife. She's probably got the touch in that wardrobe.
That he, I had him on the show a little while back too, and it's amazing that, again, I talked about Portland and sort of the rock community, but man, if you look at blues and R&B influence in this area and jazz too, it's amazing to me, that Portland, it's made a name for itself in all other sort of capacities. I mean, Portlandia sort of, put Portland on the map for a different reason, but whenever I'm traveling, especially in Europe, and they say, oh yeah, Portlandia, or, oh, isn't that the town that is burning up all the time with strife and rioters? And I'm like, oh, okay, we really need to rebuild, what Portland sort of has represented. I hit TEDx a couple weeks ago, went to the TED Talks at the Moda Center, 29 performances. Were you there by chance?
I missed it. Tell me.
Well, I will tell you, I was so inspired. 29 segments all day, amazing musical performances. Man, they had Diggable Planets at 10 a.m. Pink Martini finished the night at the end of the day. In between, they had they had Death Cab for Cutie, and they had Portugal the Man. But the speakers there were so focused on being able to reclaim and lead with love. I mean, I talked about, like kindness and decency. There was inspiring stuff. It was not a pep rally. It was really about working with your community to be able to take it back. And I walked out of there thinking, there are 7,000 people here. If only 700,000 in our state, could be seeing this. And I know that they'll present that stuff later on YouTube. But it's exactly what I needed to hear, because I needed the reinforcement and the reminder, that there is so much beauty in all of the cultural parts of Oregon, and there's unfortunately there's some tragic stuff in the past, and so recognizing that and honoring that, but then being able to move forward was really what this thing was all about. And you talk about in education, being able to have everybody sort of understand the formative things, like with your students, if they're really hip to modern music, do you talk a lot about the historical parts of, like, say, going back to Parker, going back to Bird, or even, like the early days, to help them understand where music has evolved from?
And I tell them, I whether I am invisible in this matter, but I actually went to school in Harlem, and I explained in the 70s, Dizzy Gillespie came at John Lewis's request to teach a week of history, to jazz history, in our little school at City College.
Wow.
And it was a local school for the local folks up on 137th and Adam Clayton Powell and Convent Avenue near Broadway. And it was just the center of everything that was happening, from Tito Puente to Art Blakey and the Jazz Messengers. And they'd send these, just like you're talking about, these. There was a thing called Jazzmobile, and they just move it around the city, and there'd be performances of all these great artists. And at our college, some of these students, and I've talked to a few of my professors. I think Ron Carter is still the chair in the music department up there.
Okay.
He's Miles Davis bass player. But I tell my kids about, okay, I can point you to these guys, because it meant a lot to me to just be able, when they were alive or when they were active, to see them play at the Village Vanguard, like the Max Roach, to see him play, and then another time run into him on the road. And I want you to realize, these were the guys I was told changed jazz to bebop. And then we went back this year and we watched Gene Krupa and Benny Goodman do Sing, Sing, Sing. You want to try that one? And they took it on. And the pep band could play that thing, and the jazz band could play that thing. So I don't know where I got off, but you inspired me talking about the reemergence of culture in Portland.
Yeah.
And I have a vision someday I'll go back as a clinician. I want to work in schools. I don't know where it's going to be, but it might be a place like there's a school in Northeast, private school, and they have the students working one day a week or several days, and then they have a 4-day school week. And I envision trying to get music going in a place like that, where they're very concerned about work skills and the future skills that are needed for students to just find their place in the world, be self-sufficient, and then continue art. Or we can't all be Esperanza Spalding,
Right. Oh my goodness.
back too. I want to. But the festival reminds me of some of the students that have gone out. Kate Davis was one of our Oregon Music Hall of Fame scholarship winners. And then there were just really some of Dan Ballmer and Mel Brown's students won. And we feature these kids. I'm going to try to find out who they are this year and snag a few of them.
Oh yeah, those scholarship recipients, I know that they're making an announcement about who receives scholarships on July 12th at Tony Starlight Supper Club. So if you're in the area, folks, this is, just to get on that for a second, Oregon Music Hall of Fame, or OMHOF, that we've been talking about. If you don't know, folks, it was put together to recognize musicians that have made a contribution in music, either having been from Oregon or lived here for at least 20 years. But they have an induction ceremony every year where they have a scholarship. They have an auction, and they sell autographed guitars and memorabilia so that they can gather money for music scholarships for kids, graduating seniors from Oregon schools. And so every year they've been giving out 4 scholarships to students. And again, this year, July 12th, they'll announce the 4 recipients that are going to get $2,500 scholarships. It's an amazing program, and you've been a huge part of Omhoff. I mean, not only are you a two-time inductee for the organization, but you've had students that have gone on to win some of these scholarships in the past, right?
It's benefited them, yes.
And
And
I think it's hard for me because I don't want you to feel like I'm sort of blowing you up about this, but without teachers like this and working with their students, where they've got a complete passion about music, and really the idea of supporting these kids, knowing what their potential could be. A lot of students are, unfortunately, they're swept under the rug, because teachers are burned out, or maybe they don't have the passion for the enthusiasm for the actual the whole dedication to the craft. And I'm not to disparage any teachers at all, but I do know that for me, I had some teachers that dissuaded me from wanting to pursue music. And I could have gone either way. I could have been intimidated or discouraged, or I used it to go out and chase it harder. And that was
yeah,
just that was fortunate. But I can tell by looking at the response that you have from your students, who've gone on to do incredible things, that you really cared about their, I don't want to necessarily say success, but you cared about their pursuit and their passion for music, and that's a beautiful thing, man. I think I often ask people about legacy on this show. I usually will say, like in your last days, if you're looking back, you're 95 and you're looking over your life, and you would ask maybe your kids what you would want to be remembered for. Oftentimes, I'll ask about people's own children. In your case, you've got hundreds, if not thousands, of children, right? I mean, that have actually gone through the tutelage of Schaffs. Um, can you maybe sum up in a few words what you would want them to remember you by or for?
well, music is bigger than us, and be part of it. It's a gift, uh, and it needs to be nurtured. I've had like the Paijo school; those kids came out. I watched them go do, and they did it. I didn't do it. And then I had another student that started two art schools for street kids in New Mexico, and for difficult, uh, disadvantaged, tagging kind of artists, and he brings them in and focuses them. When I see that happening, I think, okay, uh, go make a difference. That's our motto at Valley Catholic, and you can do it through music.
Yeah.
We can avoid the polarization and some of the negativity. Uh, it'll make us stronger if we want. We've. Uh, I hope the legacy is that the music is bigger than us, and we realize uh, that we're invited. And it's going to take some work, and it doesn't matter if you become a professional. This is what I tell my students. I care. Some of them just go back and start wonderful families and have a great life supporting that family. But music is like my dad in that living room. Get the ukulele out, sing some of the funny songs that you're learning.
Yeah.
Teach them to your kids.
That's a beautiful thing. You know, I'm excited for you, man. I really am. Today, is like this sort of, it's a new chapter, and I would imagine it's probably bittersweet in some respects. Do you feel like it's a little, I know you've got to be excited, but was it a tough thing walking out of that classroom today?
There were some tears
Yeah.
earlier in the week, but the seniors and I have worked out through fear and trembling, and cards of appreciation, hugs. We're allowed to hug.
Good. Good.
and, and so I'm really going to enjoy uh, ushering them out in a processional at graduation this week, and we're going to have the younger kids have to step up now and play the pomp and circumstance, and they're a little nervous,
I
but
bet.
the pep band without me went out yesterday and played for a pickup football game that the high schoolers were doing, and it's a tradition, and I didn't go, and they did it themselves. That's my legacy. There will be a
Yeah.
pep band next year. I might sit in, but they're going to be able to do it. And they have leadership and they have the will to do it.
Oh, that's beautiful, man. I love that. Aside from sitting in with the pep band as you come back around from your retirement tour, uh, who on the planet, maybe a historical band that's not around anymore, they may have passed on. What's the one band that if there was an opportunity, Schaffs should be a special guest, the bucket list item for you?
I'm not worthy. But I would have liked to at least watch Lester Young play with Count Basie.
Oh yeah.
And I would have liked, but I can't. When I watched, I would go out and hear jazz when I was in college, and I had a dear friend that turned me on to so many kinds of music. He'd get me out of jazz for a week, and we'd go down and hear the Clash when they first came to New York. They played Bonds for a week because it was too small a venue, and they played at down in the Lower East Village. I would like to play with the Pogues. I think if I had to choose one game, I would like Joe Strummer to be alive again. We could all do something with the Pogues.
Love that. That's a good one. I dig that. Nobody would have asked. I can picture Oingo Boingo. It's totally that. You probably did some gigs with those cats, right?
It's embarrassing. I have an Oingo Boingo story, but maybe that could be for future. We opened for them at the Holt. What's that down in Eugene, that big theater? And there was an all-day sound check, and they took forever. And we're sitting down, boiling downstairs, waiting for our chance. And we didn't have provisions. We didn't have a dinner or any, green room. All we had was a case of Heineken. Oh. And so we're getting kind of low blood sugar and a little. And Oingo Boingo finishes this 3-course meal, and they go upstairs to do their sound check. And I figure, okay, they might be done. Maybe there's some leftovers. So I go in there and I find a couple things, and I'm walking out the door. I'm thinking, this isn't really stealing. We're starving. And there's Danny Elfman with his black mascara eyes, and he walks to the door and he goes, "Looks like you found yourself a pie." I was at Dead Man's Party. I mean, I was like, oh my God, Dan, Mr. Elfman, sir, I'll put it right back. And he goes, "I think you're going to need 2 of those pies. You got a big band there." And he was so nice. And he let us sort of have our much needed sustenance.
Yeah, man. Pies. That's the way we've done some gigs with the remaining members of, they call them original members of Oingo Boingo or whatever. And watching that band, I wished I'd seen the original band live. It blows my mind how it's so much the Crazy Eights energy. It's sophisticated, spirited, like dynamic rock and horns. And I miss the Eights. Used to cover Naked Party long before I ever moved to Portland, man. We would cover that song, and that was the song that would bring down the roof, at the end of every cover gig that we did.
Oh, yeah. Well, I'm glad you enjoyed that energy and got to see the Eights live.
Yeah. There was is there any reunion gigs planned? Are you guys planning on doing anything?
They were kind enough to come down and help me do a Catlin reunion, class of 78, and we played in Nescoin up in the hills overlooking beautiful eagles flying, and we had a wonderful gig last August.
Okay.
I asked Todd, he's playing with an African group up at Bumbershoot right now, and he's kind of busy, and Carl's doing stuff with Fred Stickley. Everybody's busy playing. The bass player's traveling to Norway with his wife, and I figure, all right, we're on hiatus. And I asked Todd, and he goes, "Yeah, we're on hiatus. It'd be nice, but it's time for something new too."
Sure.
So
Yeah. Well, as long everybody's amicable, right, and you could still get together and celebrate it without having it be work. It's a beautiful thing when you guys are out doing the things, enjoying the fruits of your labor. You've earned it, man. I mean, you really have. Folks, if you were blessed enough to get to see Danny Schauffler in the past, then you already know. I'm telling you, you need to get out there on June 25th, man. Go down to Lake Oswego Festival of the Arts. This gentleman deserves to have a little pat on the back for a remarkable career in education, and his contribution to this community is it's profound and tremendous. And I would be remiss if I didn't say that your better half too, that Annie is such a huge part of this. And so I know that our partners oftentimes get overlooked sometimes because we're out there in the spotlight. You are one of those guys that makes sure that the spotlight is always elsewhere. It's always on your students, or it's always on the organizations that you're working with. You deserve some of that spotlight, but so does Annie. And so I want to say thank you to Annie for being just an amazing support system and partner and manager for you. And
And she hears you. She hears you. Thank you.
good, man. And I have to tell you that I consider you a hero, man. I really do. I feel like you're one of those people that has inspired me, and I cannot wait to see you play in a couple weeks. And on my bucket list is just to get up on stage with you one more time. Get to do a little rock and roll. So
We'll do.
hold a spot for me. I'll bring my sticks wherever I go just to make sure. Oh, you know
You're
what?
in a garage band. I can have two drummers.
Yeah, man, I'm down with that. And Alex and I know each other well, so if there are ever two drum kits, that helps. But
I got the back line.
I love it, man. I'm really excited and excited to see the rest of the lineup too, man. You've got a lot of great music that weekend. So, again, folks, if you go to lakewood-center.org, you can see information about that gig. Go out there and find those old Crazy Eights albums and support Danny Schauffler. There they are, right there. Go to vinyl. Go to musicmillennium.com, and I know you can get some of that right there. So, thank you so much, man. Congratulations on a career. You definitely deserve, a Medal of Honor. And the Oregon Music Hall of Fame did it right. They knew what they were talking about when they brought Danny Schauffler in there twice. So, Mark Contrati, man, thank you again for the chat. I really appreciate your contributions here. Jacqueline, Larry Turing, thank you guys so much. If you got here late, go to accesskevin.com. This whole interview is already archived there. And
Awesome.
I'll put the link to this in the show notes. And man, if you and I have an opportunity to do some of this live, I'll do some of this. I'll stream some of this too on accesskevin.com. Let's get your Fang reveres the Raiders on on a future episode. Sound good?
Yeah, let's do it. And I can hook you up with him or Andy if you ever want to do that.
That sounds
And
great.
everybody, please support 5 Star Guitars. They're doing a great thing supporting Kevin. And go see him with Flock of Seagulls, baby.
There you go.
Got tickets.
Sounds great. Thanks so much, Danny Schauffler, Annie. Man, congratulations, guys. Have
Love
a great weekend, everybody. I'll talk to you next week with Catherine Rich.